Hey y'all, welcome to this week's show. Hope you're having a great week. Today we're going to talk about, well, really, gosh, one of my favorite herbs. I would put it in the top 10, and it is barberry or Oregon grape. They're related. I love this plant, and we're going to talk. I've talked extensively about the medicinal uses of it, so I'll probably just run through those briefly. I mean, wow. It has berberine in the root, and berberine is such an essential component of herbal medicine that when it was really first discovered here in America in golden seal, the golden seal wild population was almost wiped out. It's still protected in some areas. People don't realize that they can get the same compound from the very common Oregon grape or barberry, which is used ornamentally, and the berries are real nice. We'll talk about that. Birds spread the seeds everywhere. You pull up one Oregon grape bush, okay, and they are like, big suckers. I mean, they got a root like crazy. If they're waist high, actually, Seven Song, he's a real popular herbalist. I think just about everybody in the herbal community knows Seven Song. He was one of Michael Moore's students, and he's not actually Native American, as the name would imply. He's actually a Jewish guy from New York, and he was a member of the Rainbow Tribe. Now, growing up in the mountains of North Carolina, I am very familiar with the Rainbow Tribe. They are a loose group of hippies, essentially, that who knows how many members there are, probably thousands. Actually, my girlfriend in college did her study in anthropology on the Rainbow Tribe. She went and traveled with some and hung out with them and went to a lot of rainbow gatherings. They'll go to somewhere, and usually a national forest or something, and a few hundred of them or more will get together, thousands sometimes, and they'll stay for a couple of weeks, and they take on names, like they're given names, usually something to do with their personality, and usually there's a lot of drugs involved, a lot of hallucinogenic mushrooms and cannabis and all that, and they're interesting. Let's just put it that way. I'm sure you can have a very good time at a rainbow gathering. You can also get incredibly sick because you've got a lot of kids there, college age, through their 20s, sometimes high school kids who are from the cities and they're not used to camping or living in the woods. And so dysentery becomes a big issue. They don't always know sanitation practices, staph infections. That ex-girlfriend of mine, she got a very bad staph infection at a rainbow gathering, and Seven Song treated her wound. She actually wrote a good deal about Seven Song. That's how I was introduced to him. years before, I really became a professional herbalist and everything, he treated her with Oregon grape. Oregon grape is a fantastic, antimicrobial. It has antiseptic properties, antibiotic properties when used as a topical wash. And she healed completely from that staph infection using the herbal medicine given to her by Seven Song. And she worked side by side with him in the first aid tent. And there are a lot of injuries, a lot of people cutting themselves, getting jabbed with sharp sticks or stepping on sharp stones, and bad trips, a lot of bad trips, um, a lot of very unstable people that are drawn to such a gathering, people with various mental issues that can kind of have freakouts and violent episodes. And yeah, I mean, if you've ever, I don't care if you've watched movies from the 60s and 70s, like, whether Woodstock or Altamont, and you kind of see how this, like, oh, we're all groovy playing in the mud, kind of can turn into a violence and disease pretty quickly. That does happen, and so Seven Song takes care of that, and one of his go-to remedies is, in fact, Oregon grape. He's also very much a man of the left. He goes to a lot of protests and such where the demonstrators need to be treated for tear gas or getting whacked in the head with something. And yeah, so he has a very hands-on, very practical system of herbal medicine. We don't have to agree on anything to appreciate the same herbs and use them the same way. And I have a lot of respect for the guy. He actually operates a free clinic up in upstate New York, and it he lives his beliefs, and that's integrity. And I'm very conservative. I'm very Catholic. I'm very socially and politically conservative, economically conservative. You name it, nationalistic, populist, whatever brand you want to put on me. Even though for some reason these days, the left, especially on television and social media, just says, you're racist, you're racist. I actually have no racial animus whatsoever. If you've listened to this show for any length of time, you know that I grew up in a community that was mostly Lumbee Indian and black. White people were the minority. We grew up together. We never had any problems with each other. The adults had problems with each other. The kids did not, I went from that going up to the mountains in North Carolina, which very, very few black people in the mountains. I don't know why that is, but lots of Native Americans, several tribes, lots of Mexicans and such that work in the agricultural and food industry and construction. And, I get along with everybody. Actually, up there in the mountains, we had tons of Europeans and tons of Asians and, whatever. So when someone calls me racist, I'm like, you're just a moron. You don't even offend me. Go for it. Call me a racist. F you. I seriously do not even, I do think they've taken it too far. I think a lot of people are starting to have that reaction of like, in the 80s and 90s, the worst thing you could be called was a racist. And now it's like, well, you call everybody a racist. The word's kind of lost its power. It's lost its impact. And I'm just like, whatever. You're a moron. I don't even have enough respect for you to care that you disrespect me. Yeah. And I think a lot of us are starting to get that that opinion, gosh, what would you call it? Just confidence in who we are. And for that reason, I can respect someone that's on the left or has a different religion or none at all than me. But if they live their lives with integrity, if they live their beliefs. I've known so many people who, gosh, one of my girlfriends, her whole family were, they were Jewish by heritage, but they were atheists and communists. And, you would think, well, you wouldn't get along at all, right? Well, actually, they did a lot for in their community and a lot for charity and volunteered at soup kitchens and got, helped the poor kids get Christmas gifts and, didn't put any divisions between them and the people they were trying to help. And yeah, I had total respect for them and they treated me with respect until we got serious, and then they said, "There's no way you're marrying a Christian," and but that's another story for another day. Gorgeous redhead, actually. But anyway, Seven Song's one of those. He's one of the guys that lives his ideals in a way that really, more people, more Christians should do, helping the poor with his own time. Not, I mean, it's one thing for someone to say, well, I'm going to raise your taxes and then we'll take this money and the government will distribute to the poor and 60 or 70% of it's going to be lost in bureaucratic expenses and waste, fraud, and abuse. That's how most people want to help the poor. There are actually some people out there, really on all sides of the political aisle and of every religion and lack thereof, who actually just go out and interact with real people in real life and do their best to show kindness. And, how can you not respect that? I mean, we can get along with anybody who has that attitude. Everybody would be able to get along actually pretty well if everyone had that attitude. My house is kind of trashed in the mountains right now. I got to have a lot of repairs thanks to the hurricane. FEMA's not really helping anybody, and everybody's really struggling. So I'm down staying at my mom's for the winter, and one of her one of her neighbors is extremely liberal. That couple actually, they're in their 70s. They're typical baby boomer liberals, PBS types, right? And we do not talk politics, but we get along great. And he asked me how things were going on in the mountains, and I told him. He said, "I'd be glad to go up there with you and help." Now, this is an older man with heart disease, and I'm like, I really appreciate it, but probably not the best idea. But he was genuine, and so we avoid talking politics and religion and everything that matters in life. But you can still be a good neighbor to anybody, It does not take anything away from you just to smile at someone and say, "Hey, how you doing?" Open the door for somebody as you're walking into a store, or stop and help somebody side of the road. I mean, driving back home from my house last time, there was a beautiful old Dodge truck. I mean, real classic, broken down side of the road. And the water pump was out and it was running hot. And kid, maybe, 18, and his girlfriend sitting there waiting for it to cool down. And I stopped and gave him some water I had because I was traveling. There's no water in my house right now, so I happened to have 3 or 4 gallons of water. And, they were just thrilled. They were just, I cannot say, honestly, that they were in any hurry to get home. I mean, he's broken down with his girlfriend on the side of the road, and they were kind of cuddled up. But still, just little things like that. You don't have to talk about serious issues. We just kind of hung out while his truck was cooling down, and he was telling me about all the repairs he had done on it and everything. Great kid, Those little just normal things, even at a store, learning the cashier's name and asking how they're doing, makes a huge difference in somebody's life. I remember when I was younger, 16, 17, working in retail and running a cash register in an Eckerd's drugstore, and the many things I did. I had a lot of jobs beginning in high school out of necessity. Dropped out of high school just at 16, at my 16th birthday, and started working in a burger joint, really kind of awful job. And got my high school diploma through the community college system, and I started college early, actually, but then injured my back and had to take some time off. I've told you that story before. You all know it. But, I remember what it was like to be a kid and be so insecure and unsure of everything when someone would just learn your name and say, you're doing a great job, or give you a little bit of advice. It's weird these days. I mean, now I grew up in a college town, so I guess it is kind of different when you do. When you grow up in a college town, when you're in high school, you're mixing with the college students. When you're in college, you're mixing with grad students and professors, and there was never an age stratification. I mean, when I was 16, my girlfriend was 24. When I was 24, my girlfriend was 17. We just, there was no stratification in age. You'd be hanging out with people in their 40s and 50s, and you'd be maybe 20, and everybody treated each other as equals. So that's kind of the background I come from. These days, I see, especially on social media, it's so very stratified, and it's like people only talk with people their own age, and they act like it's weird to even have a friend that's 10 years older. And that's really not good. That's not how knowledge is passed on. Really, if I could encourage you to do anything this week, it would be to speak with the cashiers at the grocery store, or wherever you're going to meet younger people or older people, and whether they're retired or they're in senior centers, or whatever, and make those friendships. Be kind, and give advice when it's appreciated. Nobody wants somebody that gives unsolicited advice. Listen always, and treat everybody like they're on the same level, and because that generational knowledge has to be passed down. People don't really have a lot of extended family anymore. I mean, the family's broken. Most couples never marry. Most children have no father in the home. Most children are lucky if they know one grandparent. Forget, great aunts and uncles and cousins and all that. So this knowledge of herbal medicine, or knowledge about gardening, or knowledge about cooking, or fixing an automobile. I cannot tell you how many times I run into somebody different than the guy with the truck the other day. It could be a teenager, 20-something-year-old girl or boy, and they don't even know how to change a tire. I mean, because they didn't have a dad in the home, and they don't really teach shop in school anymore, and no one taught they were taught how to drive a car, but not how to change the oil, change a tire, top off the antifreeze, change a thermostat if the thermostat goes bad. It's one of the most common things that happens on a car. Change a fan belt, and they're just helpless. They're helpless, and really the auto repair industry is fully aware of that and will take advantage of them like crazy. I mean, as I mentioned, I'm staying with my mom, and first thing I noticed around here was how they try to rip you off on everything. I mean, I had my brakes were wearing out. I needed some new brake pads. Went into the local tire place that was recommended to me. They wanted to charge me over $1,000 to change my brake pads. $1,000. And I said no, thank you, and I went to AutoZone and did the whole job for like $75 myself, because I know how to do that. This is, people are really hurting now financially. We've had a horrible economy for the last 4 years plus, thanks to COVID, and inflation through the roof. And it may, if there's a young person, obviously especially a young single mother, or whatever, if you can stop and lend a hand and say, let me show you what I'm doing, that may be the only time they've had somebody in their life that would do that. And you can make all the difference for that person. I've seen it happen a million times. Gosh, I mean, one time in my old truck, my starter was going out, and a guy stopped and said, "Here, look at this." He gets out of the truck, he takes a hammer and says, try to start it," gives it a whack, and it started, right? That kept me going until I could get my starter changed. That was a tip I didn't learn growing up. Well, I've since shared that tip with I don't even know how many people. Little things like that mean more than, especially in our like alienated, stratified society, then I don't know. A lot of things people place their self-worth in, or would say, this is why I'm a decent person. Well, I mean, you could be a decent person and be a hermit, I'm sure, but you can also be a much better person if you just, you know, see somebody that's a little short on change at the grocery store, and slip them $1 or two. Say, don't worry about it, I got it. Um, that's that goes a long way. It really does, and it doesn't have to be any grand. I remember hearing one time this fellow. He was really rich. I mean, one of these like multimillionaires, and he goes to confession, and the priest says, for your penance, I want you to volunteer an hour at the soup kitchen. And the guy just reacts. He's like, "That's crazy. I make this much money in an hour. I can take. I would donate an hour of my earnings, and it will be worth so much more. I mean, like I make $100,000 an hour, and I'll donate $100,000 to the kitchen." And the priest looks at him and says, "That's great. I hope you will donate. But the penance I've given you is not based on the monetary value of what you can do. This penance is for your soul. It's more important for you to give out of your own time and effort because you value that more than your money." And that's something, especially around the holidays, to think about. A lot of us don't have a lot of money. Um, we're all struggling these days. Really, in the last 4 years, they always say the rich get richer and the poor have gotten poorer. Well, actually, during the Biden administration, due to his policies, the top 1%'s wealth has grown exponentially, and the middle class is essentially gone. Money has moved to the richest, and just about everybody in between has slipped down to like barely making it through. Most people do not even have $1,000 in cash to pay for a car repair or a medical expense. You may have a professional degree and spent 6 or 8 years in college, and you're barely making ends meet. You're barely making your house payment, covering your student debt, paying your credit card. People are cash poor. So giving a little of your time, and more than that, your compassion, treating people as humans, is probably the very best thing you can do. Now, speaking of Christmas, please remember my books make excellent Christmas presents. They're all available on Amazon, and I'm doing this special through the end of the year. If you do a paid subscription to any of my Substack newsletters, whether it's Judson Carroll Master Herbalist or the Uncensored Catholic, I'm giving you 2 free ebooks that you can keep or give away as gifts, but also my wood carvings on Judson Carroll Woodcraft. That's also on Substack. I got several sets on the site for sale right now. They're a great price. They're wonderful, and I hope you'll consider giving them for Christmas presents. But now, let's talk about the plants, and we will start with Oregon grape. Now, depending on where you live, the berries of Oregon grape may ripen in the late spring or early summer. Its cousin, Barberry, these two plants look nothing alike, by the way. Oregon grape kind of looks like a big holly bush with blue grape-like berries. And Barberry has little leaves that turn a beautiful red color in the fall and tiny red berries. I mean, you would not think these are in the same family whatsoever, but they are. Barberry, usually in the fall is when its last berries are ripe and hanging on there. It's a very, very important food for the birds and such during winter, and a little too small really for us to use. So I really do prefer Oregon grape. I love the taste of the berries. They are very intensely bitter. They're intensely bitter, but when you get used to that flavor, you appreciate it. You get the sweetness kind of behind it. Kind of hard to describe. They are grape-like. Think of like bitter grapes, bitter, very blue grapes, and actually quite good once you get used to them. I have both growing on my property, and both plants are really important, as I said, to herbal medicine. Strong antiseptic properties, very good for the liver and stomach. Berries of Oregon grape, like the entire plant, are extremely bitter, but not unpleasantly. It's not like one of those like punchy in the mouth beers like an unripe persimmon. This is kind of a nice bitter, combined in small amounts. I would say you wouldn't want to use a lot with other fruits. You can make a nice fruit salad. You can absolutely make a nice jelly or wine out of it. They actually have their own pectin. Just press them and cook them and add some sugar to taste, and they're going to form a really nice jelly. Once you get used to the bitterness, I mean, obviously you'll enjoy snacking on while hiking. I mean, I do that all the time. Whenever I see ripe Oregon grapes, I grab a bunch of them and just pop one in my mouth every few minutes, and it's really nice. Uh, they make a wonderful wine. Oregon grape wine is very good. Now, if you never tried them before, the flavor can be a bit shocking, we'll say. It's like, boom, something, bitter in your mouth. But you get used to it. It's like dandelion grapes. The more you eat them, the more you develop a taste for them. Oregon grapes, berries, I would say, are more like cranberries than any fruit that comes to mind. In fact, yes, if I was going to say, what does an Oregon grape taste like? It's like a cranberry. And you can make a simple compote of them just as you would cranberry. Excellent side dish for roasted meat or fowl. Just put a cup or two of the berries into a pot along with a cup of water and a cup of sugar. Bring it to a low boil. And once cooked, press the berries through a strainer to remove the seeds. It's actually optional, but you're probably going to want to do that. You could seed them beforehand and save the seeds to plant new Oregon grape bushes. But this is the easiest way to do it. You could add the sugar beforehand and let them boil, or you could add the sugar. Well, let's add the sugar after, because we want to strain those seeds out. So put them in the pot with the water, cook them till they pop, strain the seeds out, then add the sugar. I think that's going to work best for you, and that is what I would do. And some citrus zest. You just get that kind of aromatic sourness of like some orange or lemon or whatever citrus zest. It's going to really bring out those flavors really nice. Of course, you could absolutely put in some cinnamon and clove. I would. Again, that's really very good. Anything along those lines, allspice, mace, anything like that. It's like a tart cranberry sauce, which cranberry sauce really should be. If you make a compote from fresh berries, it's going to be much less sweet than canned cranberry sauce. So adjust the sugar to your taste. But it's got this distinctive kind of Oregon grape taste and aroma. Uh, it's a little hard to describe. Definitely with like a pork roast or something, uh, roast chicken, anything. Really, really good. And even just a couple of bites of it, just like a small serving, will help with digestion. And like with even the heaviest, fattiest meal, that's why people used cranberry sauce in early America. Before that, lingonberry was very popular in Scandinavia certainly still used much to this day, but throughout Western Europe to pair with fatty meats. It's almost essential, honestly. Now, medicinally, Oregon grape, as I said, really is one of the most important plants. Plants for Future says medicinal use of Oregon grape. Oregon grape was often used by several native North American tribes to treat loss of appetite and debility. Its current herbal use is mainly in the treatment of gastritis and general digestive weakness, to stimulate the kidneys and gallbladder function, and to reduce catarrhal or congestive problems. The root and bark root, or root bark, is alterative, blood tonic, cholagogue diuretic, laxative, and tonic. It improves the digestion and absorption and is taken internally in the treatment of psoriasis, syphilis, hemorrhages, stomach complaints, and impure blood conditions. Externally, it has been used as a gargle for sore throat and a wash for blurry and bloodshot eyes. The roots are harvested in early spring and dried for later use. You could probably harvest it any time. I think that's probably when it is most potent. Really before the plants start to grow into its next season. We normally harvest roots in the fall, winter, early spring. But if you're in the woods and you get a cut or something, and there's Oregon grape or barberry nearby, go ahead and rip some up. That's what I was just finishing to finish my thought on Seven's song. Even as much as a hippie he is, he takes a big heavy logging chain with him in his car, I think he has a Toyota or something. And when he sees an Oregon grape and he needs it, he just backs up to it, chains it to the frame of his car, and rips it up because it's huge. And, I mean, it really, the root goes down much further than you would think. So, sort of a violent method for a very peaceful guy. But anyway, berberine universally present in the rhizomes of the Mahonia species, and that's what these are. They're Mahonia. Mahonia, has a marked antibacterial effect and is used as a bitter tonic. Since it is not appreciably absorbed by the body, it is used orally in the treatment of various enteric infections, especially in bacterial dysentery. Another reason why Seven Song uses it a lot with the Rainbow Tribe. I guess that's really the reason I don't go to rainbow gatherings. One, it's not my scene, obviously. I would be like odd man out totally. I grew up a deadhead. I'm a bit of a hippie myself, but I'm not, a wacko, liberal, new agey type. I'm more like modern day Grizzly Adams is how somebody described me one time. And that may just be because I have so many quasi pets of wild animals. I actually do tend to adopt abandoned or injured wild animals, and they tend to stay around the house. I've got right now, well, obviously I'm away from home, so I don't have anything right now, but before the hurricane, two twin fawns, their mother drove them away before they were able to survive on their own. Deer are horrible mothers. Don't ever believe Bambi, by the way. But they were starving, so I started feeding them, and now I have two pet deer. Yes, it's a little odd for a deer hunter, but they are, it's really been interesting kind of raising deer. They're not very bright. First of all, they really, like I said, they don't believe Bambi. They really don't have any emotional attachment to each other or to anyone. It's not like a dog where you're going to form a bond with them. They just kind of get comfortable with you. They get used to a person or another deer, and they'll hang out with you. You can rub them, and they like that. I mean, when they're little, the mothers lick them, and so when you take your hand and rub them, petting an animal is just like that, and they respond. They become very docile, and they can. But they don't. I can't imagine what the human equivalent of a deer's IQ would be, actually. While they have good survival skills in general, I would probably put them at about a 2. I mean, they're really. I mean, I've been around horses and cows and goats, and I mean, a lot of them will really surprise you with their intelligence. Deer will not, at least not in my experience. They're really unintelligent animals. Sweet in their own way and everything until they're not, as like when the mother drove her twins away. She did so by kicking them in the head until they wouldn't come near her. They were still in the nursing stage, so obviously that they would have died, and she did not care. There is no maternal love or instinct after she says, "I'm out of here." They're on their own completely. But anyway, I usually have about 3 to 5 pet crows. And that happened because they started watching me garden and different things. And instead of, to keep them from stealing all my garden seeds, I started putting out like some stale bread and such for them. And it was a nice little trade-off. And they'll come, and when I walk outside, I immediately hear them start calling to each other, and they'll come to the trees above my head, and they'll just walk right up to me, and I can feed them. Squirrels usually, sometimes a rabbit or two, although rabbits usually end up in the stew pot, as do squirrels. But I am a sucker for an injured or weak or abandoned young animal. And my pet owl. Yes, the little owl. This is the funniest thing. So I had just moved into the house up in the mountains, and it's a cabin, beautiful cottage actually. It's not a cabin, it's a cottage, built in the 1940s. I knew the builder. He's recently passed away. A wonderful heroic personality, a veteran and descendant of Daniel Boone. I mean, it's one of those really unique mountain houses with a big stone fireplace, right? The fireplace is huge. I mean, the fireplace is absolutely huge, and the chimney is ridiculously big. Um, I, the chimney's so big, it will suck all the heat out of the house in the wintertime. So a lot of times I just have to close off the fireplace. I'm probably going to put a wood stove in there now when I get home. But a lot of times I just have to close it off because it is such a big, huge stone chimney. The house itself is, around 2,000 square feet with a little in-law apartment on the back, so it's a good-sized house. And that chimney will just absolutely freeze you. So I didn't have a fire in the fireplace that winter, and I had it covered. And I wake up one day and I'm hearing this weird noise. Something's banging around in the fireplace. So I remove the cover, and out comes a little owl. Just walks right out of the fireplace, looks at me, cocks its head, and flies up to the antique pie safe I had sitting against the wall, maybe 10 feet away. And I thought, wow, that owl has come down the chimney and is trapped. So I take a towel and throw it over the owl and take it outside and let it go. And the next morning, the same thing happens. And the next morning, the same thing happens. And finally, it dawned on me that owl was determined to live with me through the winter. So, put down a bunch of newspaper because owls make a huge mess. If you've ever kept a canary or a parakeet, just imagine that like times 100 with little bits of mice and stuff in the poop. Really nasty, kind of, actually. Started feeding her a few sardines every now and then. And for a good 3-4 years, I had a pet owl every winter, and occasionally now she still comes for a visit. I don't know if it's the same owl or a descendant of that owl. It's yeah, and then the flying squirrels that will come in the house in the winter too. One of the reasons I let the owl stay around, we have these little flying squirrels, and they will get in. I mean, they can squeeze through the size of a dime. If they find any way to get into the house, they will, because they want a warm place to be in the wintertime. But they're really nasty and somewhat of a health hazard. So you can't let them live in the house. I mean, if you've ever had mice, you know how they poop everywhere. Well, flying squirrels are like 10 times worse, and they also knock things over and everything. It's not sanitary to allow them to stay. The owl took care of that. Yes, that ended my flying squirrel problem, was having a pet owl. So, yes, so modern day Grizzly Adams, and I'm cool with that. It's actually sort of a family tradition of mine. My grandfather adopted all kinds of strange animals. So did my uncle. We had a 3-legged alligator that lived in what had been like a koi pond, in the backyard. Well, it became a home for an alligator, and my uncle adopted, was it 3 or 4 baby raccoons that were abandoned. And so, yeah, I grew up with raccoons as pets, and they're great. Now, you want to talk about a smart animal? You can't get much smarter than a raccoon, and they can be absolutely vicious, and they can carry diseases, and it's actually illegal to keep them as pets, so I am not recommending this. But as kits, we fed them with little, baby bottles with milk, and they were like cats, very much like cats, actually. Very playful. They'll scratch you up, they're very much like cats. And so, yeah, growing up, it was nothing for me to walk outside and the raccoons come running up to me and climb right up me like a tree and perch on my shoulders and start nuzzling the sides of my face, and they're very affectionate. They're actually very smart. Raccoons are one of my favorite animals because they're a lot of fun. That said, don't back a wild raccoon to a corner. They are little bears. They are in the same family as bears. And that sucker, it may only be about, a foot and a half tall and weigh 10, 15 pounds. It's going to rip you to shreds. I am not kidding you. A raccoon, they're fast. They're strong. They're a lot like a cross between a cat and a bear. Wonderful, absolutely wonderful pets if they don't give you rabies or rip your ear off or something. One of them did try to take a cousin of mine's ear off one time, so absolutely not recommending raccoons as a pet. As I said, it is illegal. It's actually illegal to domesticate any wild animal. The deer that I said are like pets for me now, they come and go as they please. I just put out a little food for them, and I'll sit on my front porch, and I'll be writing, and they'll just come and graze beside me and kind of nod at me and go to sleep right beside me. And, they're not house pets or anything, so don't worry about that. Anyway, did I finish up Barberry? Yes, good for enteric infections, especially dysentery. It should not be used with glycyrrhiza. Very important. Glycyrrhiza, of course, is licorice. Barberry, Oregon grape, anything in the Mahonia species, plus anything with berberine, like golden seal or coptis. Coptis is really the best replacement for golden seal because it's just a little flower, and you can grow a whole flower bed full of them and have a lifetime supply of berberine and never have to harvest a golden seal plant. It negates, well, basically what happens is these are very bitter substances. Gentian is very similar, actually, to Oregon grape. Same properties. Gentian is the classic bitter. It's actually what all other bitters are measured by. Licorice and gentian cancel each other out. Licorice and berberine, anything like that, it cancels each other out. Now, licorice, of course, strengthens the kidneys and lungs. Good for colds and coughs and different things. Berberine or gentian or anything like that stimulates the liver and pancreas and gallbladder, stomach. You can't use those two together. So if you're using licorice because you have weak kidneys, you can't use Oregon grape or golden seal or gentian. If you're using gentian for your liver or your skin or anything like that, because an overtaxed liver causes a lot of skin conditions like eczema and psoriasis, you can't use licorice. So you can use anise, though. Anise is, when you eat licorice candy, the taste you're tasting isn't actually licorice, except for a couple of really good high-end licorice candies, which I love. I love salty licorice, actually. The real Swedish stuff that people hate, I love it. But in most Twizzlers or American licorice candies, that's actually anise. It might have some contraindication with those. I mean, it is sweet, and a sweet will counter a bitter, but nowhere near to the extent of licorice. And as they say, licorice nullifies the effects of berberine. Berberine also has shown an anti-tumor activity, very important. And then they say the root and bark are best harvested in autumn, after saying before that it should be harvested in the spring. So I'm pretty sure any time between fall and when it starts putting out new growth in spring, you're going to be okay. Now, one more plant for the week, and we'll wrap it up. It is, let's see here. All right, it's a short one, no problem. It is Jungia japonica. Now, this is from my book, The Medicinal Weeds and Grasses of the American Southeast. This is actually an Asian weed, so to speak, and obviously it grows everywhere. I mean, it grows all over North America, and it came from Japan, and it probably grows just about everywhere outside of the Arctic Circle or something, right, or the Saharan Desert, even though actually it could probably survive desert conditions pretty well. We get a lot of weeds in America from Japan. I don't know what was going on in the early 1900s, but somehow, man, did they import some Japanese weeds. This one is, like many of them, burdock. Well, we have a native burdock, and then we have an introduced burdock. Perilla, or beefsteak plant, one of my absolute favorites. Kudzu, obviously. A lot of the so-called Japanese weeds are wonderfully medicinal and really good to eat, too. I love perilla. I actually grow it in the garden. It has this weird, spicy, cinnamon-like, licorice-like taste. It's in the mint family. Really one of my favorite pot herbs. I put it in soup a lot. It's good in pickles. If you make pickles, you put a few leaves of that in there to help keep them crisp. help prevent any spoilage, and it gives sort of that like sweet pickle flavor. So you can do like, what do they used to call those? Half and half? No, that's not it. Anyway, it's a sour, sweet pickle that my grandmother made a ton of them. I'm still eating them. I have jars of pickles that she made in 1992 that I'm still eating. They're perfectly good. Oh, cannot remember the name of it. This is the flavor in that. So I often put some perilla in there. But no. Let's talk about Youngia japonica. This is called Hawksbeard. Officially, it's Asiatic or Japanese Hawksbeard. It is really common. I'm just going to say, I don't think I've ever lived anywhere where I didn't see this growing. And of medicinal use, plants for future states, Japanese hawkweed. The plant is antitussive. That means it helps with cough. You know, like when you get your Robitussin cough syrup, the word comes from that Latin word, tuss or pertussive. Antitussive means it helps stop coughing. That's all that means. It's also a febrifuge. It can help break a fever and is used for the treatment of boils and snake bites, of all things. I know it more of a wild edible. It's especially in the spring. I may have included in both of these books the Spring Foraging Guide. I'm not sure. But in the spring, the young leaves and the shoot, the young plant itself, is excellent as a wild edible, either raw or cooked. It's one you can throw in salads. You can cook it as a pot herb. One of the first ones that pops up. So kind of looks like a dandelion in a way, or a daisy, something in between the two. Just Google it. You'll probably will have seen this plant all your life and in abundance and thought of it as a weed. Really good one. Really good one for colds and flus and just to eat. So remember that. All right, I'm going to wrap it up there. Next week we'll get into some other fascinating plants. Another one of these is my favorite. We'll get into cocklebur. But anyway, we'll wrap it up here for today. Y'all have a great week. And please buy my books and stuff for Christmas gifts. You'll give somebody a nice gift, or my spoons and such, whatever, and you help me make a living, put food on the table. As I'm somewhat homeless right now, that's not a bad thing. As I said, FEMA not exactly helping us out a whole lot. In fact, that liberal neighbor of my mother's, he was asking me how things were going, and I told him, FEMA's not helping. But I saw on the news they're doing a great job. That's just all the Republicans criticize. I'm saying, no, let me tell you what's going on right now. We got people living in tents. They have no homes. FEMA's I think paid out like $200 million or so, 250, just double that amount. Say they paid out 500,000, dragging their heels now for 2 months. They paid out 500 million. I meant to say. Let's say they paid out $500 million. Groovy. Appreciated. We have at least $53 billion worth of damage in North Carolina alone. But that sank in. Biden just went to Africa and gave Angola, I think it was Angola, $1 billion. FEMA's paid out $250 million to try to cover $53 billion in damages. And people are freezing in tents with no food. So that's FEMA's doing just a bang-up, wonderful job, aren't they? And as far as it being a Republican issue to criticize FEMA, let me just tell you, Tom Tillis, biggest fan of FEMA on the face of the earth, North Carolina Senator Tom Tillis. Chuck Edwards, Congressman, North Carolina, has a big letter on his site. Don't criticize FEMA. They're doing a fantastic job. No, they're not. What happens is the feds come in, they talk with the local politicians, and they're like, we're all on the same team. And then a criticism against one of us is a criticism against the team. So they go out there all rah, 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 while people are starving and freezing to death. And then they're going to wonder why next year they're out on their asses being voted out of office and nobody ever wants to speak to them in town again and would probably spit on them if they saw them. Yeah, that's the real situation. To put it bluntly, to put it mildly, the small amount of money that FEMA has given me will not repair my house. It's going to come out of my pocket. And, someone might say, well, it should. You don't need the government to bail you out and help you. Okay, that's fine. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm a physically fit, able person. I can actually do the work myself. I can gradually buy the lumber and everything that's necessary, and I'm self-employed, so I can take an hour or two a day to work on some subflooring or replacing a ceiling, all of which has to be done. There are a lot of people who paid their mortgages for 30 years, paid homeowners insurance every single month, and paid their taxes, have been denied by their homeowners insurance. Probably 90%, nearly everybody that's affected by this hurricane has been denied by their homeowners insurance for the majority of the damage, which was caused by flooding. Their mortgage holders are telling them, if you don't have home insurance, we will cancel your mortgage, and the whole thing's due and payable right now. FEMA's not helping them out. And one of the great stories that got all over the news, it was wonderful, about a month ago, a bunch of Amish came in and built everybody a bunch of small houses, like those, tiny cabins that are kind of popular these days. And the state and local government said, oh, no, you can't put those on your property. They won't meet the zoning regulations. And so those people are in tents with warm houses not able to be put on their properties. And meanwhile, their home that they paid on for 30 years or more, or was passed down for generations, is laying in a million pieces or was just washed down the river. Gone. I mean, these people have no homes. Their cars are destroyed. And FEMA dragging their feet on giving payments to replace vehicles. That's one of the biggest complaints. And meanwhile, thanks to Biden and inflation, the price of a used car is higher than it's been in decades. I mean, decades. I mean, you tried to go buy, and not to mention, a lot of the cars on the lots in the mountains were flooded, so they've got real problems, and interest rates so high, you got to replace a car. $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 from FEMA is not going to buy you a new automobile when the current price for a new car is well north of $50,000 for a pickup truck. And used are selling for 10 and 20. If they've got, decent mileage and are in decent shape. I'm doing a lot better than a lot of people. So I'm not complaining a bit. But I'd still appreciate you buying my books. So do look into that. Anyway, y'all, keep praying for the people affected by the hurricane. Just because it's not on the news anymore doesn't mean, there were rumors just a week or so ago that people were literally freezing to death in those FEMA tents. Turned out that probably wasn't true. They said an infant had died. Nobody's exactly sure what the deal was there. Probably was resuscitated, but that was pretty close. And there are a lot of people that are maybe a little too proud or a little too independent to go into those FEMA tents and shelters. And they're on their own, and it's going to be a hard winter for a lot of people. And just remember the words of Ronald Reagan, the scariest words in the English language were from the federal government, we're here to help. That rings true today. And it will still be quite a while before President Trump is sworn in, and we actually have someone in the office that gives a damn about the mostly Republican population of Western North Carolina, East Tennessee, North Georgia, Northwest South Carolina, Southwest Virginia, that just got hammered with, in many cases, you had a creek or a river in your backyard that might have been anything from 6 inches to 3 feet deep, right? And within just a few hours, it was 8 or 10 or 30 feet deep. My post office was under 8 feet of water. I lost over a month's worth of mail because I was out of town. It had been, I got a P.O. box. I'm thinking, I got to be out of town for a bit. I'm coming right back. Lost bank statements, legal papers, been on the phone with the IRS for hours trying to figure out if they had sent me something that it turns out they never sent me because they're running 6 months behind in what they're doing. They're so wonderfully efficient. Um, that's, minimal compared to somebody whose whole house was gone in the blink of an eye. So, anyway, y'all have a good one. I'll talk to you next time.